Latest on another story that we have been following. This is out of Idaho, where the man accused of fatally stabbing 4 university students in mid-November does remain jailed on 4 counts of murder. An affidavit released Thursday provided some new details on the investigation, but it also left the public with several questions, including a possible motive. Ted Williams with Fox News, a Fox News contributor, joins us live from the jail in Moscow. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So, a lot of information revealed in that affidavit. Tell me exactly what stood out to you.
You know, that affidavit was riveting, it was shocking, and it contained a great deal of information. And I can tell you that we received, since that affidavit, additional information. And here's what we know. That is on November the 13th, that Bryan Kohberger, a PhD student at the University of Washington, entered the home where the 4 students were sleeping through a back entrance. As he got in the home, he encountered 2 of the students, Ethan and Zanny, and he wound up killing those 2 students. He then went up the stairs where Maddie and Kelly were sleeping together, and he wound up killing those 2 students. At that scene of where Maddie and Kelly was, he left a tan knife sheet as he was leaving. He came down the stairs and he came face to face with one of the students who survived this carnage. She says that she looked at him, he looked at her. She could see that he was dressed in dark clothing with a semi-mask over his face. She could see his eyebrows were burly. He said something to her, and then he left out that back door in which he came. That is what law enforcement was initially faced with. The student, and for some unknown reason, did not report this incident for about 8 hours. When law enforcement got there, they found this very, very gruesome, bloody crime scene. They started their investigation. What they found through video was that there was a white car, and they specifically described the white car as a Hyundai Elantra automobile. On November the 25th, they put an all-point bulletin out to law enforcement. On November the 29th, a Washington State University police officer notified law enforcement that a vehicle registered to a Bryan Kohberger was at a certain location. And it was at that time that they became laser focused on Bryan Kohberger as a potential suspect in the killing of these 4 University of Idaho students. They did a cell phone search, and they were able to show that Bryan Kohberger's cell phone pinged at least 12 times in the area where these students were killed. They were also able to show that Bryan Kohberger, they believe, came back to the scene after having killed these students. They continued to search and conduct their investigation, and part of their investigation was to let Bryan Kohberger drive that automobile from the state of Washington back to his home in Pennsylvania. At that stage, they were able to conduct and collect DNA, and they were able to show a nexus, a direct connection between Bryan Kohberger's DNA and the knife sheet that was found at the scene. At that time, they arrested Bryan Kohberger. They've confiscated the white vehicle. They are doing a scrub of that white vehicle. Bryan Kohberger, at this stage, waived extradition back here to Moscow, Idaho. Bryan Kohberger went before a judge where he was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and where he faced the death penalty or life in prison if found guilty. Bryan Kohberger sits in a jail cell, right in the jail that's over my shoulder. These are some of the things that we found out about this case at this immediate time.
So one thing that you mentioned, of course, was the cell phone that did ping in that area about 12 times. What does that indicate? Does it sound like maybe he was stalking one or all of these victims, or just that he was in Moscow in general?
No, it sounds like he was laser focused on the house with these 4 victims. It could be considered tantamount to stalking, but when we look at the fact that the Moscow Police Department has put out that one or more of the victims in this house was targeted, it is my belief that once Bryan Kohberger entered on that 2nd floor, and once he killed Zanny and Ethan, if they were the targets, he would have then left. But he didn't leave. He went up to the 3rd floor. So it's more likely than not that one of the girls on the 3rd floor, either Madison or Kelly, was in fact Bryan Kohberger's target.
So at this point, one of the big questions that just about everyone is asking is a motive, because we learned so much information in that affidavit. But at this point, we don't really 100% know the motive, and that's a question that could linger for a while.
It could linger for a while, or we may very well never know the motive in this case. In light of the fact that when this case is presented to a jury, that is certainly something that a jury would want to know. Law enforcement, if they know the motive, they've not shared that with the public yet. But I have a feeling that law enforcement, if they believe that that there was a targeted individual in that home, that they clearly believe that they know the motive, and at the right and appropriate time will release that information.
Yeah, so many questions about this one. We also learned, as you mentioned in the affidavit, that he essentially came face to face with one of the roommates who did survive. So to hear that he walked right by her and apparently didn't injure her in any way, what does that indicate? Does that indicate a targeted attack?
Well, it indicates that that person, that student, that surviving student, was not his target. Because if she was in fact his target, and by the way, there was one other roommate that was in the house at the time. She was on the 1st floor. If either one of those two was the target of this killer, he certainly would have possibly killed them also. It tells me that he specifically had someone in mind as he went in that home to kill.
All right.
Hello. Sorry. Sorry, guys. Sorry, yeah. Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Huda London. Sorry. Yeah, hello. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Huda London. I'm a licensed cognitive behavior therapist and a licensed mental health counselor. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the contents in this channel. I'm a licensed mental health counselor and a CBT therapist, like I said. So I usually deal with the mental health branch, the mental health field. Cognitive behavior therapy is a here now therapy. It's a short time therapy It's for people to find, not to find the right therapy is very important. It depends what mental illness you're suffering of, what kind of emotions you're going through, if it's trauma, if it's couples counseling, if it's personality disorders. There's different kind of therapy for different kind of folks. Mental health is a very important branch. That is one of the reasons I started this channel, so I could try and spread mental health awareness, because there are so many people who are silently suffering with mental health illness and they're not letting anyone know. They don't want, they believe personally, basically what I believe is they believe that they would be a burden to someone by coming out and telling their family that they have serious depression or mental illness. They feel like they will be judged. A stigma is put on mental health for a very long time. But I'm happy that in these last 20 years, people are more focused, especially the last 10 years with mental health. And I think there's still not enough resources there out for people who have mental health illness. And I hope in the coming future that they would have more studies, more researches, medications, right therapies for people who are suffering with mental health awareness. Today I'd like to go back to the case of the 4 quadruple murders that happened with the students of Idaho Moscow. This happened on the 13th, the 12th actually of November, going on the 13th of November. So this happened around 4 to 4:27, I believe, at night, towards the early morning. More and more evidence are starting to come out, more and more statements are starting to come out from neighbors, from the neighbors' doorbell camera. And there are many channels showing that allegedly that was what the neighbor's door camera picked up the noises, and people are assuming that it's Eaton and Zaina Konodl. They were fighting for their lives, and you can hear Eaton screaming and yelling in pain, and then it gets disconnected. For whatever reason it gets disconnected, I don't understand, but there are so many pranksters, there are so many people who are taking advantage of vulnerable situations. Just like 5 weeks ago, I believe, there was a certain YouTube creator who put on a neighbor's accordingly. He said that it was a neighbor who gave him the recording, and apparently it was made online from an app and such things. So we have to be really careful where we get our resources and our information from. I always personally say, if I don't get my information from law enforcement, that means something is missing. Then I would be just speculating and I wouldn't be following facts, because the people who have the facts right now would be law enforcement, especially in Idaho, Moscow, and Chief Fry, because we're supposed to address them. They are the law enforcement state that have the case, and that is under their authority. I am glad that after it took over 7 weeks, I'm glad that they finally found allegedly the suspect, Bryan Christopher Kohberger, who's 28 years old. Bryan C. Kohberger lived at Washington Pullman. He was studying in Washington Pullman, and I believe he was teaching. He was an assistant teacher around those areas. So he lived in a block. The neighbor who lived underneath him said that he would start just like hoovering in the middle of the night, and he was a person who was always awake at night and all that. She said she wanted to talk to him about that because she has little children, but she said, I did not get the chance to do it. And I was just thinking to myself, you are lucky that you didn't get the chance to do it, because imagine if he would have said, invited her in his house, or if he started stalking or something like that. Some people are very dangerous without you knowing they're dangerous. So it's best, even when there's so many incidents and so many killings that has happened between neighbors. So she didn't even know that the murderer of the quadruple murderer was her neighbor upstairs hoovering. I've heard many people speak about OCD and that Bryan had OCD. As a therapist, we work and deal with OCD. But OCD can come in any kind of forms. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're over clean or over, like you're obsessed with something. OCD is more like, it's a disorder obviously in CBT, because it's kind of something that gives you a phobia. That's how you keep on doing the thing over and over again. It's like, example, cleaning. They're very focused on cleaning and they're scared of bacteria or they're scared of dust and all. Then they would not only clean, they would over clean till it becomes so spotless that there's nothing left to clean. So it's not only, people always think that OCD has to do only with cleaning. No, OCD can have different branches, just like Bryan Kohberger is a vegan and he doesn't eat meat. That is a choice of lifestyle. That is not OCD. But for him, it becomes kind of a OCD, if it makes sense, because he went so far to tell his uncle's wife, his step aunt, to change her frying pans and her pans in general, because he needed pans that the pans have never touched meat before. So anything you can obsess about, even stalking is a part of obsession. You're obsessed with something that you don't let go, so you keep on stalking the person or overdoing it. It is all kind of disorders, part of disorders. But what I wanted to come to the main thing is, we've heard a lot from law enforcement, or we've heard a lot of all of these news statements and things coming out from the affidavit. So it is interesting, but then there's still that connection that I'm very interested in. What was the motive? What is the motive? How did he get to know the 4 victims? Was he targeting all the 4 victims, or was he just targeting the 2 girls upstairs? Or was he targeting Zaina and Ethan? We're still not sure about what his motive was, but now I'm starting to maybe look in a bit more into what Bryan Enton said, that law enforcement told him that when they were booking him in and they arrested him, he asked, have the others been caught? Have you all caught them too? So I'm starting to wonder, was there anyone who was working with him, like as a... I most likely believe that he's done this by himself, but I'm starting to wonder if there was anyone maybe who was his run boy, who was running around doing all these errands, making sure that he kept on watch out so that he could alert him in case somebody is coming near the property. And another most important thing that I wanted to make this clip for, I wanted to know, do y'all honestly believe that Jack in the Box, the delivery that Zana ordered online, do y'all believe that Jazano ordered it, or could it be possible that Ethan not eaten, I'm sorry, that Bryan Christopher Kohberger must have ordered it, because Jack in the Box, there's no Jack in the Box in Idaho, Moscow, and those areas. The closest one is in Washington Pullman. And isn't it strange that the delivery came at 4 exactly, and Bryan finished his killings between 4 to 4:27 or 4:25. It took him 25 minutes to kill all of the 4 victims. I wonder, did he come with the Jack in the Box driver, the delivery guy? Could that be possible? Could it be possible that he was sitting and waiting in his car and he saw the opportunity? Maybe he ordered the delivery for them so that he can see who opens the door, who comes near the door, how many people are at home, maybe to see maybe if Eaton was at home. Then he would have to maybe postpone his evil plan. There's so many questions that come into play. And as a therapist, a mental health counselor, I personally believe, and I would like to believe, and I'm trying to make myself believe, if that makes sense. I don't want to rush the gun. I don't want to jump into conclusions or any more speculations, because that could damage people's lives. But I really want to know what's the 411 with Dylan M, DM, the roommate, and Bethany F. What is wrong with those 2 girls? And that is not to attack them, but that is just one question, especially to DM. Somebody came into your house, you saw a masked man. You heard your friend crying. First it starts with, she heard Kaylee saying, there's somebody here. There's somebody in the house. She opens the door, she closes it back again. Then she heard somebody crying. She opens it, she doesn't see anything, she closes it back again. The 3rd time, when she hears the crying, I believe, and she opens the door, she hears this voice telling Xana, it's okay, I'm here to help you. So all this is not making sense. I can understand that the body goes into a flight, or freeze mode. That is common. In the shock, she could have frozen, like she said in a statement, which I do believe. But you knew that something was literally going in the house. So no matter if you're doing illegal drugs or underage drinking or whatever it could have been, common sense would tell anyone to call 911. Even if you're in a trauma shock, you would be in a more trauma situation, not calling the cops and knowing that there's a killer around, and not knowing what has happened to your friends if they're in their rooms. Because I'm sure she was calling out the name. I can picture she must have been calling each one's name. Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, Eaton, and she must have been kept on hearing the names. Kept on calling the names, and when she saw that nobody's answered, she must have knocked at Bethany's room. She must have told her what she saw, and I don't know, for whatever reason, they decided to call law enforcement at 11:58. Something doesn't make sense here at all. That's all I'm saying. I know the girl is a victim herself. She's a survivor. She's one of the surviving roommates. But then everybody's storyline has to stick. It has to make sense. Make it make sense. Why would Bryan see Kohberger? Why would he let one of his victims survive. I heard many people saying it's because Dylan or DM wasn't one of the targets, but I don't understand that. But just say you're supposed to carry out a plan, and somebody wasn't part of your target in the plan. But then guess what? The person by mistake saw you. What are you going to do? Wouldn't it be more common sense to keep the person quiet in a way? I hate to say that, trigger warning, because the person is going to snitch on you and going to tell what they saw. So why did he let Dylan live? And I've always said that I really want to know what was the relationships between the four friends. Or I mean the 5 roommates. Were they close? Were they argumentative? Were they on each other's case? Somebody needs to, I'm sure, and I hope law enforcement has spoken to the landlord of the house. If he's heard any issues of them together, the girls, if they were on arguing times or they were on fighting times, just in case it's a motive too. There's nothing wrong in asking. I don't believe there's anything wrong to do it mindfully. And I'm not saying Dylan is involved. I'm saying it's a blessing that they're alive. But I'm just saying what would take 8 hours not to call law enforcement. And that brings me up to another point, which is really important too. I spoke about it in my previous clip. Do you remember that the private taxi driver who drove Kaylee and Maddie home on the 12th, 13th, the day that the murders will happen or happened? God rest his soul. Do you all remember that that driver said that this house was known to be a drug house? He said a pickup house. He said many people used to come here to buy drugs. And that's not my words, guys. That was his words. So I'm trying to make sense of it. If people used to come to that house was a very known house. And if that house was known, it made me think about it yesterday. Let me find a mindful, professional way to put this. The guy said that that was a drug house. That means drug was being bought and sold there. He said he drove many people. He drove many people to that house in Kings Road so that they could pick up drugs. Trigger warning. And then we have Mr. Kohberger, Bryan Kohberger, the alleged suspect, who we've heard from his close friends, was on heroin use. Now let's put that together. We need to find out, when did Bryan Kohberger stop his heroin addiction? How long was he on it for? If he was continuing, maybe secretly taking pills or any other kind of drugs, then he would have obviously gone and searched for where he could have got it from. And if this cab driver is saying that that house was people used to buy drugs from that house, do you think that's how he got the number of this house? And do you think he was an upset customer? I'm just thinking, guys. I'm thinking of all the possibilities, but I think that is important. And in my next clip, I will find that article where the private Uber driver said allegedly that that house was known for drugs to be, people used to buy and pick up drugs from there. So was Bryan under any drug usage, whether it's pills, whether it's mushrooms, whether it's marijuana? And that brings me to the last and final point. Without any judgment, I've heard many people saying that what's her name? Could DM have been on drugs? Yeah, why not? She could have been on mushrooms and become hallucinated. She could have been on other severe drugs. She could have had a blackout and forgot what happened. Dylan's timeline doesn't make sense. And now that she's seen the killer, I feel even more sorry for her. But I hope she could give us a better understanding to this case, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't take someone 8 hours to call law enforcement. In fact, it would take me 8 seconds or max 8 minutes, because I know there's a killer on the loose. Something doesn't make sense in this story. So to summarize it, my questions are simple actually. The jack in the box. You can only buy it from Washington, Pullman areas. And that box, Jack in the Box the Jack in the Box was in the kitchen. We saw it, the paper box. So I don't know if Zan and Ethan got to even eat their food. Because this killer, I believe his target was Kaylee and Madison Morgan. If not, it was one of the two girls, because he went upstairs first. You heard the Fox News saying it in the clip that I just put in the front of this clip. So he must have gone, did whatever he was going to do with poor Katie and Mags, and then come down the steps, and he must have bumped into Zana because she ordered the food and she was on TikTok. Or maybe Zana sent Ethan to go pick up the food from the kitchen, and then the struggle started from there. But why didn't he kill DM? Why would somebody leave an important witness like that who could tell on you? Is it because he wanted to be caught? Why did he leave his knife sheath there? Maybe Bryan Kohberger isn't that smart as he thinks he is. But I really want to know what was his motive. This man was planning this from June, I heard. June, August. He was around this immediate area of the 4 victims 12 times. So was he stalking Maddie at work? Was he stalking Zaina at work? Which would make sense, because then you got 2 girls in one in the Mad Creek. Was he stalking those 2 girls, and Kaylee maybe used to come around to Maddie and Zana's work and wait for them? So he would have got all 3 there. I really don't believe that Ethan was part of his plan, unless he was jealous of Ethan of being young and handsome and lovable and having friends and all. We don't know, but we'll find out soon. But this man has no empathy, he has no emotion, he has no shame, he has no decency, and he doesn't care about human life. We've seen that straight out, and especially for him, the fact that he's using his father to drive him up and down, or to be an escort to them so that his father gets the accessory murder charges. And his sisters are therapists. They could see this clearly coming. They must have observed his behavior, but I think Bryan used to get away with this behavior since he was young. He was aggressive. So maybe he knew of how to work his parents' and his sisters' buttons. That is very possible. But DM is the one that really interests me, her story. Because you came face to face with the killer. That means a lot. And the killer let you live so that you could see his face, and he didn't mind you seeing his face. I find that a bit difficult to believe. Unless he was overtired, unless he didn't have the time. Or maybe he just got so high with his own adrenaline rush that he did the crime. Luckily for us, he did it wrong. We forgot plenty of evidence. But the sad thing is, we have plenty of Bryan Christopher Kohbergers around the world. We just have to accept that. But we as parents need to watch out for our children, their development from young, and seek treatment for anyone who needs treatment, especially mental health. Because Bryan declined the mental health plea, and he said he feels like he's sane in his mind. That is the first proof of his insanity, that he believes he's sane. I believe he needs a mental health evaluation. And we're just lucky that these two roommates survived for whatever reason. We'll find out soon, definitely. It's just sad for all these parents that have lost their beautiful children, that have to grieve, have to remember the last time they saw their daughters and their son, the last words they said to each other, the education they could have had, the future grandchildren they could have had. In a way, it's like everything is stolen from them by this selfish human being who went and got a PhD in crime so that he can commit the crimes that he could have protected us against, because he wanted to work with law enforcement. So we should be careful in this world. There's many antisocial personality disorder people. Not all of them are like Bryan, but there are many psychopaths and sociopaths around. And guys, I really want to debunk this theory. It wasn't Bryan Christopher Kohberger that we saw in the tribute a month ago. It wasn't. This guy who's there in the tribute is much shorter. His hairline is different. His ears look different. His chin is shorter than the real Bryan. So rumors need to be stopped. And please stop putting up the recording of allegedly Xana and Eaton getting stabbed or killed. Trigger warning. Please stop that. Imagine if those were your children. We need to let these parents grieve their loss by themselves, with their loved ones, with their families, no matter what. Anyway, guys, stay blessed. Let me know in the channel what you all think. Tell me your opinions. Share your opinions with me. Because this case is just like a roller coaster ride. I just hope justice can be served for those poor families, and the justice can be served for anyone who's entitled to it, because this is so unfair. But I'm sure we'll find out more. And since they have his DNA on the knife sheet, I don't think it'll be easy for him to win this case. Thank you, law enforcement in Idaho, Moscow, Chief Fry, Idaho troopers, Idaho law enforcement, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and all of the people who've been working hard and helping on this case. Justice for the victims and condolence to their families. To my family subscribers, I wish you all peace, I wish you all blessings, I wish you all a happy new year. Take care and have a lovely weekend. Thank you.